Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Music Made Me. Thank you so much for joining us once again as we bring you inside the musical journeys of your favorite artists. Today we're sitting down with Canadian singer, songwriter, and producer Shawn Hook. He's been recording music ever since his high school days, and it's been a steady climb ever since those early recordings in his hometown of Nelson. With the release of his latest EP, Take Me Home, he continues to evolve and grow as an artist. So please enjoy our conversation with Shawn Hook. Let's go back to the beginning when you're, 4 or 5 years old and you start piano? Is that when you started?
Yeah, we're going way back.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah, no, yeah, my mom had an old electric organ kinda keyboard, that was given to her, and it was just in our living room like, just any other toy. But, I take a liking to it. I would just sit there and I would just pretend I was making up music, and my parents thankfully were patient enough to let me do that. They probably just left, and they put my older sister in piano lessons around the same time, and because it was kinda like a way for them to, have someone babysit us, I tagged along and kinda picked it up as well, and, yeah, I didn't stop. I just kept that's kinda where it started, and I just really liked music from a pretty young age, and thankfully, my parents put me in the lessons kinda by chance.
And what's your first memory of the music and realizing the positive energy that you took from it?
That's a good question. Earliest memory, I think it is those moments of, like, sitting down in front of this thing that made noise and, like, I could, like I was creating it, and it was cool, it sounded pleasing to my ear. I think that energy was, like, an expression, not knowing what it was as a kid. It was just I was expressing something and it was coming back at me, and I think that's the root of music. It is what our feelings kinda sound like, and it's a way that we can express ourselves.
And were your parents musical at all?
My dad was musical, my grandfather, my uncle, they never took any technical training, it was all just an emotional expression. My grandfather would, play the guitar around the campfire or would bring it out to, any Christmas gatherings or birthday gatherings, and, my dad would sing with my uncles, and my grandma would sing, and, like, it was my family was very, musical in the sense of, like, it was a hobby and something to just was really a stress relief.
Right, and so did it come pretty natural for you? Was it something that was sort of in your blood when you started the piano and then when you picked up the guitar?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, it started with the singing because like our family sang all the time every weekend, and I went to a Russian church, Dukerbor church, where singing was a very big part of my upbringing on a weekly basis, and so it was kind of a normal thing to just you're gonna sing, uh, and then yeah, and with the piano lessons, it was kind of I think my parents just wanted me to maybe pick up a skill. My dad, God bless him, but he could never play. He was his version of playing guitar. He takes the guitar, flips it on its back, and bangs on it in the drum because he can't technically play. Because I think he was putting accordion lessons when he was younger. But yeah, thankfully they put me in piano lessons because I really took a liking to it.
So can he play the accordion?
Not anymore. I don't think my grandfather did.
Have you ever tried it?
I did, yeah, yeah, and I really liked it as well because, like, half of it is kind of a mini piano,
Right.
my grandfather would play, and then I would go and play the little piano, and we kinda had a little accordion duet. It was pretty funny.
I actually have one. I got one from my great grandpa or from my grandpa, sorry. And so I have it in the basement, but I've never, aside from just kind of going in and out, I've never actually tried to make any sort of nice sounding music with it.
Amazing. I think yeah, it was a thing. I think it was a trend. It was like, everyone played accordion back then.
Now, growing up in Nelson, it is and was known as a bit of a hippie town.
Yeah.
And so as far as the music goes, like busking and stuff like that, was there any of those opportunities within the city?
I never busked in Nelson, but I did spend a lot of time in Nelson, working on music. I After high school, I joined, like, literally the summer after I graduated, I joined a band in Nelson, and it was a disco cover band. They called themselves Shag, and so it was comprised of like some incredible musicians, like some of the Selkirk College Music School faculty and former students were kind of made up the band, and I was asked to join as a trombone player. So I picked up the trombone in high school and I loved it. I'd go down to Moscow, Idaho, and we entered jazz festivals, and it was great. And my buddy asked me, he's like, "Hey, like, I got an offer from Shag to kind of start a horn section for this disco band," and I was like, "Are you serious? I don't know about that." But it was amazing. It was so much fun. So I spent a lot of time in Nelson at the campus rehearsing, and then I started my own band with some of the Selkirk College music students while I was going to Selkirk College's academic campus in Castlegar. So I was doing kind of both things back and forth. But uh, yeah, definitely the Nelson culture impacted me growing up, and I'm very thankful for that.
Now, speaking of the trombone, I have a memory. I don't think I'm dreaming. Back when I talked to you in 2013, when I was researching for that interview, I seem to remember something about the trombone on social media, and you would do these bedroom sessions. And I can't remember, did you play the trombone or was it just like in behind you?
Yeah, it was behind me, but it's funny, trombone bedroom sessions. I'm like, where are we going with this? Yeah, no, I had it on a stand. Eventually, I put it back in its case because, as time went on, I played it less and less. It's a fun instrument, but it's like it takes a lot of practice to keep going with your embouchure and the kind of music I make. It didn't really call for a trombone.
Yeah, no, I guess not. Eh?
I love horn sections though. I love like, putting in horn like synthetic. I can put in synthetic horns, and then it's nice to add like a layer of like a real instrument. But I packed it up because it was kind of getting damaged by the sun, to be completely honest.
Because that was kind of a thing, wasn't it? Back then when you were doing your videos, like people would sort of comment on the trombone sitting behind you.
Probably, I can't recall a specific one, but I mean, it was there for everyone to see. Yeah.
Oh man. So you talk about the playing when you were at Selkirk, and let's talk about your first album in 2004. It was, right?
Yeah, wow.
And how do you say your last name?
Halukov.
Okay. So that first album was released under your real name.
Yeah.
Talk about that album and sort of how it came together. That was when you were out of high school, right?
Yeah, it was right after that. It was around the college time. I was going I was seeing a vocal instructor from Selkirk College, privately. So I was taking private vocal lessons because after high school, I knew I wanted to pursue music more, but my vocal training was very limited, if any. And I kind of knew if I wanted to get better, I needed to study with somebody. And the vocal instructor at Selkirk College was doing private teaching, and I enrolled with him. He was also a musician, songwriter, and producer, so I would go in for my vocal lessons, and then I'd show him some songs that I had written and recorded myself. Because in high school in Mount Sentinel Secondary, I learned how to record music with Rick Lingard, who started this music composition program and course where every student had to write 4 songs a year and record them. And so we learned how to record, we learned how to write, and all the really it was such an amazing thing, an amazing program to be offered at school. I'm sad now because that's not offered anymore to students, but that got me the excitement for songwriting. So after that, I enrolled with a vocal teacher in Nelson from Sucker College, and basically I just wanted to get to be a better singer. But when I played him some of the demos that I had been writing and recording since high school, he was like, "Man, you've actually got like a really solid body of work here. Like these demos are good, but I feel like you can make an album. Like what why if you'd like to, like maybe we can, maybe I can produce it with you or co-produce a record with you and focus on some of these songs that I think are really strong." And I was like, "Okay, sure." And that was kind of the start of it. And I put together, I think, 12 songs that I did with well, his artist name is Crusoe, and he now goes by Jude Davidson, who's now living in London. But yeah, it was pretty awesome to have that experience. I kind of lucked into it because I learned a lot from him, just the recording process and production and whatnot, and was my ability to put up my first kind of independent album.
Yeah, and going through that process when you were doing it, were you in the mindset of recording an album that would help you make a career in music? Or were you just wanting to record something just to record some music and put it out there and see what happened?
Yeah, it was a bit of both because at that time I didn't really know like much about the industry at all, and I didn't know. Yeah, I really loved music and I loved songwriting, and I wanted people to hear it, and I wanted to continue to do it, just more so than just out of my basement. um, so it's a bit of both. It was curiosity for to see if anyone actually liked what I was doing. You know, it was nice to get an endorsement from Jude, the producer, and he encouraged me to go to Vancouver and go to sit in on some. The Songwriters Association of Canada would put on symposium events where they would invite songwriters for basically they would invite established writers and producers and people within the industry to give talks, and also would listen to demos and whatnot. So Jude inspired me to do that, and I would drive out to Vancouver for these symposiums, and a couple of times I've had my demos played like anonymously and got some really amazing feedback, and I kind of got the bug, and I was just like, I want to get better, I want to keep going, and so yeah, that album was a bit of a stepping stone for sure.
And then 2006, you released your second independent album.
Yeah,
And was that one just another step in getting towards giving it to labels and maybe taking that next step in your career?
totally. Yeah, because at that point I had made the decision to fully commit to music. Because when I was in Nelson, I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, direction I wanted to go. I was going to Sucker College for engineering. So my in my mind, I was like, okay, if I can get a 2-year university transfer and go to UBC, once I get to Vancouver, I can pursue music and engineering. It was more so I now that I look back, I was kind of trying just to satisfy, my parents and like most of us in graduate from high school, it's like, what do we do? Let's just, let's go to college, I guess, and do what we're told. At that point, I didn't
Yeah.
have a clear vision of what I wanted to do for a career, but I loved music, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna keep doing school because a degree would be great. But something clicked for me. I think in a summer job I had in Nelson, and I was like, you know what, I really got to give it a shot, full on. And if I don't, I'm probably gonna regret it. So I got my 2-year university transfer from Sucker College, and I didn't apply to UBC right away. I decided to enroll in recording arts school because I wanted to learn more about that side of the industry because I really loved it. I loved writing, I loved performing, but I also was so curious about the process of recording and understanding how to get a good recording. And so I enrolled at the Art Institute, and that brought me out here. So I would go to school during the day, and then I would go play open mics at night because I wanted to like absorb the industry in Vancouver. And then as I was doing that, I was writing music, and I had a ton of new songs, and I decided to record another album. And I met another producer engineer named Shale Wrench, um, and he helped me engineer this album, both sides. Which, yeah, at the time was MySpace was kind of the outlet.
Right.
That album actually did get me some of my first industry attention, which was really cool.
Yeah. And what was that like when the industry attention started to come?
It was exciting, and it's interesting because it was so organic, and it wasn't really. I had written a song called "Soldier" on that album, and the attention actually wasn't from the industry first. It was from people. It was from families of soldiers and soldiers themselves, and then it was embraced by schools that would play it at Remembrance Day, and so I was getting all these emails and all this support for that song, and it was pretty amazing. As a songwriter, that's kind of the highest compliment you can get when people react to it, and so much so that they claim it as their own. And some of the letters I received are so heartfelt and emotional, like families saying, "I played this at my son's funeral." That kind of
Wow.
that just it's like yeah, that kind of like clicked for me that some The reason I wrote that song was because I saw a news piece on CNN where there was this religious group, the Westboro Baptist Church, protesting at a soldier's funeral, and the families weren't able to give him a proper service in peace because the protesters were there with tons of hateful signs and making all kinds of noise. And I just was disgusted by it. And as a songwriter, at that time, I had just moved away from my family in Nelson to Vancouver, which wasn't even that far, but I was just missing my family, and I couldn't imagine some of these soldiers that were coming home in coffins that were my age. They weren't even able to get a service, and it just something just struck me, and it was just I just sat down and wrote this song about respecting soldiers, and that resonated, and that kind of was like another little moment for me in my career where I was like, okay, I think I'm doing something that's making a bit of a difference and people are connecting. Let's keep going. And then yeah, then some of the industry came after that.
And I guess those little things along the way, you need those, right? You need them as affirmation to keep going.
Yeah, I really did because at that point I was still trying to prove to my family that hey, listen, not going to UBC and following engineering my schooling, like I'm trying to like to justify like giving that up, so to speak. Um, and there were these little affirmations along the way. Like I moved out here and I got a job uh, as a promo person, basically handing out certain things for different companies. And one of them was at the P&E in Vancouver. One year I was handing out Nicorette gum. One year I was handing out chocolates for Cadbury. And one of those years, I came across the Peony Star Discovery stage, and I saw all these artists up on stage competing in a talent show. And I found out like Michael Bublé did it, and he won it. Another artist named Carolyn Dawn Johnson. There's a bunch of British Columbian musicians have done it, and there was prize money. And I was like, why am I handing out chocolates? I should be up there. So I looked into it, and I enrolled the next year, and I entered the contest, and I got accepted, and I ended up winning. I ended up winning the competition, and that was like another moment. And that out of that, the local BCTV News, I think, picked me up, or CTV News, I guess, picked me up to do an interview and a performance, and then an agency in town, the Feldman Agency and Associates, which is like an international agency, called me and in for a meeting, and then I ended up working with them. And so like all these little tiny moments kind of led to bigger, better moments, and that's kind of been my career. I have so many little moments. There's never been like one big break. There's all these little affirmations.
Right. And then in 2008, you signed with a studio out of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
What was that moment like, especially because coming from BC, you're not signing with some little label. Well, not little, but you're not signing with like a Vancouver label or something local. All of a sudden, you're going to LA to be with a label. What was that like?
Yeah, it was wild. Like I really believed in myself, and I was just being myself in those times. Like it was so to connect the dots, when I put Soldier on MySpace, a music supervisor in LA heard the song on MySpace and said, "If you're ever in Los Angeles, I would love to have you, and I would love to set some showcases up for you." And I didn't really know who she was, but I looked up her company, and she was actually a music supervisor, and I saw her content, what she'd done, and the work. I was like, "Oh, she's actually legit." So I was like, "Yeah, I'll be in LA in the next couple weeks," which I didn't have any plans to be, but now I did because right. So I took
Right.
yeah, and one of the showcases she set up was for ABC, the television company, which I was like, "Oh my god." So I went to the ABC lot, and it was pretty surreal because it's the Disney building, it's the Ink and Paint building where they make where they made all the Disney movies and cartoons and all the history that comes with it, and it was just I kind of had to pinch myself. But I did several showcases, and the first showcase led to a job like right away. Before I signed any deal, uh, I got in touch with one of the creative directors at ABC, Dawn Solaire, and she put me in with Blake Neely. Who Blake, if you look up Blake Neely, he is a legend. He's a composer legend. He's on most of the TV shows you watch. Blake Neely has probably composed or scored most of them.
Oh, wow.
So she got me in with Blake, and Blake had did an original score for a television show on ABC called Eli Stone. At that time, it was brand new. It was their new show that they're pushing, and he said, "Listen, it'd be so cool if like you can maybe write a song to my score." And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." And so he sent me a couple scores, and I just wrote lyrics and melody, and they weren't normal structured songs like verse, chorus, pre-chorus. I just wrote parts, and he loved it, and ABC loved it, and they flew me back to LA and put me in this really nice studio, and they hired an orchestra, a full band, and I remember the notation and the score, seeing my name on it and my songs on it, and I was just like, "What is going on right now?" Like another pinch me moment. And so I had about 6 songs, before any deals were signed in terms of like contracts, but I was getting paid for these songs, and I was like, okay, I'm actually making money now. Is like, this is wild. This is what I wanted to do. And then eventually they offered me a recording writing contract in 2008, and I went ahead and signed it.
That's crazy. Like, what is going through your mind at that point? Going from Vancouver thinking, oh, I want to do this as a career, to almost just like that going to LA, and all of a sudden everything starts rolling and now you're signing a contract. Like, is your mind blown at that point?
Well, it was just really, like I said, it was really surreal because at the time too, I was doing showcases for record labels. So I literally went to every major label in Los Angeles. So it was I went to like Warner Brothers and Universal and Sony, and I went to and met a lot of great A&Rs. I got a lot of interest. I didn't get any substantial offers, so I wasn't sure which way to go. But then ABC, I found a path with them because at that time they were breaking artists and songs on TV shows like Grey's Anatomy. Any song that kind of got on the last credit of Grey's Anatomy really blew up and sold a lot of records, and kind of became this new format and discovery for people to discover new music. And so in my mind, I was like, well, this could be a new hybrid of a record label that could potentially use their platform like for all their TV shows to break their artists. And it's kind of how it was sold to me. It's not necessarily how it ended up, but at the time I was like, this is amazing. Like anyone who wants to give me creative work and actually I can make a living out of it, and I love what I'm doing, like let's go. This is something I've been dreaming of my whole life, so to speak. And yeah, it was very surreal and rewarding, and another affirmation, and definitely, opened the doors.
And just quickly, not only did you get to record music for TV, but you were actually on TV, right? In Bones?
Yeah, that came a little bit later. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that contract with ABC, they did. I wrote a song for another TV show called Wonderful Surprise. Or not, the song's called Wonderful Surprise. The show was called Samurai Girl, and I wrote like the opening theme, well, the opening promo for it. And they flew me out to New York on Good Morning America, and that was like my first morning TV show. Which was also really cool because that was a big dream of mine too. I'd never been to New York, and I was like, "Oh my god, now I'm here playing on Good Morning America." So that was pretty surreal at the time as well. But eventually, yes, I did some acting stuff.
And so 2014 was your, no, not what year was your official debut? Was it, it wasn't, it was before 2014, right?
Yeah,
Well,
after the
yeah, 2013, I guess, because that's when we talked.
yeah, that's right. So after the ABC deal, I did a year with them, and it the, the deal and the circumstances surrounding it, it didn't really come to fruition as if I thought it would. Like it was more so I became more of like a writer rather than like an artist writer, and
Right.
just cool. But I wanted to really be known as an artist, and it got to a point where I was kind of writing songs that were trying to replace bigger songs that like Coldplay had written, but they couldn't afford to bring on Coldplay. So I was like, okay, well maybe this isn't the direction for me. After a year, it was great. I love the people I worked with there, but I think it was more so to serve this TV shows rather than to serve me as an artist.
Right.
But in that time, record labels had also started talking to me again, and in Canada, I had signed with a live agency with Feldman's and Associates, who saw me perform on, or who saw me when I won the Star Discovery search. I signed a deal with them as a live artist, and so down the road, I was opening up for Heart, and then I got offered to open up for Jan Arden, and a person from EMI Records, EMI Music Canada at the time, Fraser Hill, was an A&R, and he flew from Toronto to Penticton to see me perform and open for Jan Arden. And thank God, Jan took a huge liking to me. And that night, I was one of my best shows I'd ever performed. And I had a song that I had written called Every Red Light, and I performed that for the first time on piano live. And I sold so many CDs that night off the stage. And it was kind of like the perfect scenario for any record label to see me in. And I'm just so thankful for
Right.
that. And then I had an endorsement from Jan after my set. She was just like, she was making some pretty funny jokes, like, um, let's give it up for Shawn. Shawn, I can't remember his last name. I only slept with him once, and like the audience was just going crazy. It was pretty funny. She's hilarious. I love that. But that kind of started I got offered a record deal from that, and then I went ahead and I signed that in 2009, and then I went on and made the record, and it wasn't until 2012 that we released it. But the record was done for like a year. It was just so much red tape, and there was so much changeover within the company itself. And we were looking for an international partner at the time, and then eventually found one, and then they got let go. So I was like, guys, I don't care. I just want to put this out now. If it's only in Canada, great. Like, we'll figure the rest out. Let's go. And that was my debut in 2012. The first single was Every Red Light, and in 2013 we followed that up with So Close, and yeah, Two Hearts Set.
And what was it like going into that album? Because I know when we talked in 2013, you had said it was supposed to be an EP, but you had so much stuff that it turned into a full album. But coming from doing all that writing for ABC, like you say, it was a bit different format, some of it. So coming into writing your debut album, how excited were you to finally get back to your music and writing music for you?
It was great. And the thing is, like, I always wrote for me. There would just be certain times with the ABC contract where they'd be like, okay, this is the TV show, this is the style, and I would do that as well. Like, I was very proficient and prolific, so I would, ever since I started writing songs, it was always my expression, and whatever was in the ether that day, or whatever inspired me that day, I would sit down and write about it.
Right.
Uh, Whereas, yeah, some of the ABC stuff was definitely more like, there is a target, and we need you to kind of fill that mold, which was fine, which was also really fun because there is creativity within those means, and sometimes it's good to have like a little bit of a inspiration to write about. But when I made the EP, well, what was supposed to be the EP that turned into an album, I connected with John Levine, who was a former member of the Philosopher Kings in Canada,
Right.
up and coming producer at that time. I mean, he had some successful productions, I think, with Serena Ryder and Krisha Turner, and there was a handful of other Canadian artists and bands that he had produced. And he came out and saw me at a showcase in Los Angeles, and we decided to get in the studio and work. And he decided that he would produce some of my older stuff first, just to kind of like show me what he could do. And I was kind of blown away what he did. I was like, let's get in and write. And we just wrote. We took a summer, and we wrote every day. We were in his first studio, had a horrible air conditioning problem, and we were in this old building on Hollywood Boulevard. And I just remember we'd have to go to the stairwell to write songs because it was colder in the stairwell, and then we'd go back to the studio and record them. But we just had this crazy chemistry, and like it was just so awesome. And that was such like a rewarding experience, not only as an artist, but as a songwriter, because John is such a great songwriter and a great musician, and just such like a crafter. He really helped me raise my game as a writer to maintain integrity and not just settle for the first idea or the third idea, the fourth idea. Let's keep going. What if we tried a different melody or a different lyric, or like frustrating at times, but also the very rewarding. And so we ended up writing like a whole album, and we showed to the label, and they agreed. And I love, and I got to say something, like, to Dean Cameron. He passed away, I think, 3 years ago now, maybe 4 years, and he was the president of EMI Records at the time, and he was an artist's president, and it was just, he got music. He was like, you know what, Shawn, you have an album. You don't have an EP. This is an album. People need to hear these songs. and go back to LA, finish the album. If you need an orchestra, hire an orchestra. So we did. We hired an orchestra. We went to the Capitol Records building, and where Frank Sinatra recorded, and like it's one of the most famous recording studios in the world. And we got to record like a full orchestra on that album, and it's one of my favorite recordings of or any album that I've ever put out, and there's just a lot that went into that for a lot of reasons.
That's a pretty amazing story because for someone who's starting out, it's usually the opposite of I was forgotten about, the label didn't release my stuff, I was just left on the curb. So to be an artist who's just coming out and get that support, that must have been absolutely huge for your confidence in releasing that album.
It was huge, and looking back, I realized how also lucky it is to be in that situation. Obviously, I don't want to discredit the work that we did because it was quality work, but that's the difference when you have a record label president and team that really believes in art and not necessarily how many Instagram followers or tweets or TikTok likes or whatever you have. Like today's game has changed quite a bit from then, but it was just so awesome and rewarding to be in a with a label that was artist friendly and artist forward, where they believed in the art first, and that the landscape has definitely changed.
Right. And now let's skip ahead a bit
Sure.
to 2017, and you record with Vanessa Hudgens.
Sure. Yeah.
What was that like in that experience, and being able to open yourself up to more of a fan base with an opportunity like that?
Yeah, that was there was a lot that happened before that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, at that point I had signed my first record deal with Hollywood Records in the US. Like straight up from the US. I was with Universal Canada at that time because they took over EMI, and because the song before reminded me did really really well, Sound of Your Heart. It allowed it, I got all this attention in the US again,
Right.
and I signed with Hollywood Records, and they blew up my single previous to working with Vanessa, and then it got me a lot of attention. So I was able to. The next song was super important, and I had written "Reminding Me" with Jonas J. Berg, who's a producer, and Ethan Thompson, who just signed with Hollywood Records as well. So we wrote the song, and I knew right away like something felt really special about it. We just recorded it to piano and vocal, and it was just me. But after listening to it, I was talking to my team. I was like, I feel like this could be a potential duet. And then that kind of got the conversation going. And then the label was like, yeah, this could be a duet. Who did you have in mind for the record? And I came up with a list of artists who I wanted to approach. And they threw Vanessa's hat in the ring. And to be completely honest, I was like, whoa, that's a little left of center. Like I haven't really followed her music career. I know she can sing, I know she can act, but I didn't really know she was really into doing music,
Okay.
and so I told them, listen, let me meet with her. I said, let me talk to her. Like if she's interested and I get a vibe, then I'm open to it. But I want to have the I want to do that first. I want to have that conversation first and see where her head's at. So we set up a meeting at a coffee shop in LA and sat down and talked, and she loved the song. She quoted lyrics from the song. We talked about influences, and I was like, wow, like this woman is very very cool, and I loved her vibe. And I was like, all right, after that meeting I told my team, I was like, yeah, she seems super into it. Let's do this. Let's get it going. And so yeah, we got the ball rolling, and she worked with the producer, and I worked with the producer Cause, who produced the record, who's now producing Dua Lipa's new stuff as well. And um, yeah, she knocked it out of the park. And then it was like, okay, let's put this song out. And it took a lot of people by surprise because again, there was like Vanessa Hudgens, that's interesting, but it was also like, oh, cool, this is that song. We weren't expecting that from Vanessa either. So it was kind of like I think it was like a mutual benefit for both of us, and it definitely opened me up to more of a pop audience, and a lot of her fans and followers hopped on that song right away and added it to their playlists, and that's one of like my highest streamed songs still, like monthly. Like it's wild. Wow.
You talked about the writing and your writing process, and I know back in 2013, um, in our interview, you had said any song that is good should be able to be played as minimal and as simple as possible. As you've grown as an artist, is that still your focus when you're writing?
Yeah, yeah, it really is. Yeah, I kind of brought it up in a session that I've been doing a lot of Zoom sessions, and one of the writers was like, "Well, no, we'll just let the production take care of that part. It'll just be something like." I'm like, "No, man, like I don't buy that, bro. Like we're sitting down at the campfire and like you got a guitar or piano. You can't just pretend like something's gonna move the song along. Different genres have different. You can't play at a campfire. You can't play an EDM song at a campfire.
Yeah. Well, you can if you have the right equipment, but
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I guess, like, it's a bit of an old school belief, but it's kinda, a great song should stand up in its simplest form because of the lyric and the melody and the narrative and the story. So, I still believe in that, and I still carry that into every session because that helps me maintain my integrity, as a songwriter.
your new record, it's I don't know if it's a bit more dance oriented. Like your stuff has always had that dance element. I think people maybe see this album as having a bit more dance element to it. What would you think about that as compared to your other stuff?
Yeah, definitely has a bit more of a electronic influence. I think rhythmic pop is kind of was the genre we were aiming for. And I think part of that comes with, the team I was working with on this. I signed a record deal with Ultra Records,
Yeah.
and we had a discussion when I sat down of what kind of record I want to make, and we sat out and plotted it out, and I set up a bunch of writing sessions. They set up sessions, and at the end of the day, I sat down and it's funny. Like three of the songs I wrote were songs I wrote in Nashville, uh, acoustic.
Oh,
And
okay.
we brought in Mike Wise, who's an incredible producer and friend and guitar player, and I just love working with him. And Mike took these songs that went from the acoustic kind of campfire songs, and put his take on it. Because we kind of sat down and plotted out, how do we want this record to sound, and listen to different references and whatnot, and talk to the label. And yeah, this album or EP is basically the fruits of that, of the labor and the discussions that we had going to it.
Right. And in quarantine, have you been writing a lot? Like, are you looking at pushing out more music and maybe another EP or a full album pretty quick after this?
Yes. The answer is yes, yes, yes. I have been. It's been wild. Like I built this little studio in Vancouver, and I've been in here every day. Like I've got a TV in front of me as well, so like if I want to watch a hockey game while I'm working, I can. But I've been very productive. I've been working with writers all over the world. Like I've had sessions with writers in Sweden and Hawaii, New York, London, Berlin, Milan, Toronto, LA, and it's actually kind of been really productive in some ways. Um, Now I'm not sure when I'm going to release or what I'm going to release next. I've been building up a body of work as a songwriter. I'm also writing for other projects for other, like I've had a couple big K-pop songs come out in the last couple of years as well. So I'm continuing that as well, and making the most of our circumstance, and hoping for the best that one day we can get back on the road and I can put my artist cap on. But for now, it's writing every day and recording and just and prepping for that next release.
Will it be strange not doing that artistic thing every day when things do go back to normal and you're on the road? Are you going to have to almost force yourself not to think about writing when you're out on the road because that's just the way your brain has been working lately?
I'm very OCD, I think, and I really am. And when it comes to anything, I am. So I can't. It's hard to do it all do everything once. So like it'd be weird for me to want to write and be perform at the same time. So I
Oh, okay.
definitely, as soon as it's like artist mode, then I dive into that. I'm doing vocal practice every day. I'm running at a certain time every day, and I'm practicing every day and maintaining that live artist kind of world. It really is challenging for me to sit down today and be like, okay, today I'm gonna write a song, then I'm gonna do a TikTok video and a YouTube video and have it all work. Like I feel like something's gonna suffer if I don't focus on one thing, and that's just how I am.
Right.
So I really am looking forward to the day when we can go back on tour because I can't wait to get obsessed about that again and dive into that part of my career because I really do love it. Like last March, I was doing a weekly Instagram live show, and I got obsessed with that. I became like a show producer. After every show, the next day, it was like, okay, who are you gonna have on your show this week? What are you gonna talk about this week? What songs are you gonna play this week? And it like I did 10 straight, and it was just like and then I was like, okay, I didn't make a single cent from that, but it was great to engage my. It's obviously not all about money, and we were still trying to figure out what was going on with the pandemic and how long it was going to go on for. Um, but that in a sense, I was just so consumed and focused just on this one weekly show on Instagram as an hour and a half, but it took a good like 4 days just to prep and practice and record and call friends to see if they can come on because I would interview two guests and all the pre-production stuff, which I also enjoyed as well. Um, but yeah, I think when we go back on the road, it'll be an easy transition because mentally I have to kind of I don't have a choice. I just become that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, yeah, stay busy,
Thank you.
stay creative, and thank you for taking the time and sharing your journey.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Hopefully it's stuff that maybe you haven't thought about in a few years, and it kind of takes you back to a simpler day.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's great. It's great to go down memory lane and to revisit the early inspirations because it's super important. And yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for prepping all that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll look forward to more stuff coming out from you and to shows in the future.
Sounds good, Brendan.
Okay, thank you so much.
Take care. We'll see you later.
Okay, see ya. Thank you guys once again so much for listening. We really appreciate the support, and thank you to Shawn for stopping by and sharing his story. Please make sure you are sharing, liking, following, and subscribing to us on whatever streaming service you are listening on. And please join us once again next time for The Music Made Me.